It was only a couple years ago that I realized that the Hemi-Sync tones, the binaural beats, have been crucial in my development as a medium. I had taught thousands of students how to connect, but I never required or asked them to use binaural beats until my guide said, "You use them every day to this day." We're all in evolution, and my personal evolution included a huge wake-up call last August to a major piece of the mediumship journey that I was missing. And I like to liken it to a lantern that's swinging on a chain, and the light is present and it's kind of drifting a little. But when you anchor in the hara, that's like putting that light on a pole. When I started doing that, I noticed that my connection to spirit became much more solid and anchored. I was thrilled with my connection until then, but this was a game changer.
Welcome to Focusing In. I'm your host, Garrett Stevens. This is episode 52. Our guest today is Suzanne Giesemann. She is a spiritual teacher, author, and medium, recognized on the Watkins list of the 100 most spiritually influential living people, a former Navy commander and aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. She has published 17 books, 7 Hemi-Sync recordings, and YouTube videos reaching millions of viewers. She produces the Awakened Way app and hosts the Always Connected podcast. Suzanne shares the Awakened Way, a mindful approach to living in awareness that we are not only human and are part of one interconnected web of higher consciousness. Her gift of multidimensional communication has been verified by noted afterlife researchers. Suzanne provides stunning evidence of the existence of universal consciousness and our interconnectedness. She's been a keynote presenter for organizations including Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Academy for Spiritual and Consciousness Studies, the Afterlife Research and Education Institute, and the International Association for Near-Death Studies. She has led weekend retreats at well-known spiritual centers, including Omega Institute, Lily Dale Assembly, the Monroe Institute, and Unity Village. She has written and narrated the popular mediumship series of Hemi-Sync recordings, that's us. Suzanne's gift of evidential mediumship has been tested and verified. Her work has been recognized as highly credible by noted afterlife researchers and organizations. She serves as faculty with the Shift Network and Humanities team and is a member of the Evolutionary Leader Circle, a group of thought leaders from diverse disciplines that supports a global shift in consciousness. You can also find Suzanne on episode 5 of this podcast, as well as 3 subsequent Q&As. So look for those in the feed. But here is Suzanne Giesemann. Suzanne, welcome back. So just to recap for folks, in previous pods between me and Suzanne, we've talked about mediumship, evidential mediumship, and the states of consciousness conducive to the practice. This included some explanation of brainwave states. So we're generally looking for alpha, which is a relaxed brainwave state, but theta is also useful for deeper connections, including with non-physical beings. And theta, for those that don't know, is the borderland sleep state between wakefulness and sleep. In addition, your 4 previous mediumship series titles we developed, or in those titles, we developed essential skills for the practice. These included how to enter expanded states of awareness, how to build and stabilize your energetic field, and how to become familiar with the presence of guides and other expressions of consciousness beyond the physical realm. And so this was reflected in those titles, which were the training ground, building the power, working with your guides, and making the connection. With that foundation laid, this 5th installment now is entitled Trusting the Connection. So is it fair to say that we're really talking about moving further away from thinking and analyzing and deeper into sensing and feeling?
Absolutely. Very fair and accurate to say that, because that is the journey. At first, we need to open our awareness, expand our field and our sensitivity to the presences that are already here in awareness, but not in our conscious mind. So that's what the first 4 recordings are all designed to do. And now that people have had practice with that, hopefully they have a consistent practice. This just takes you another very important step farther.
Perfect. And for those that might not understand the difference, what is the distinction between thinking and knowing?
Oh, it's paramount in mediumship. You can actually feel when you're thinking. I can't even talk about it without constricting a bit. If I ask you to multiply 13 by 16, what happens? The mind goes to the head, and you almost always scrunch up your face. There's a little bit of activity going on there in the head. That's thinking. It's a wonderful skill. But knowing has no constriction. Knowing comes from the actual opposite of that constriction. It comes from an openness where you simply are aware of what is arising, and it comes with such solidity that we call that knowing.
Lovely. And so, yeah, so I'm getting that knowing arises basically as a complete perception or direct perception, whereas thinking is more sequential, analytical. We're comparing, evaluating.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect. And so, what role does the human nervous system play in all of this?
Oh, it's valuable in helping us find meaning out of what we perceive. But the challenge is the nervous system actually acts as a filter to the information that is already here in the field. So all of my Hemi-Sync recordings, and this one, of course, are aimed at relaxing and settling the nervous system and creating a state of coherence with all systems in the body, with the nervous system ruling over them all.
Perfect. Yes, the human nervous system is very focused on physical survival. It prioritizes that, and so more subtle information might not come through. And so, to do all of this, we need to develop some trust, right? How do we build that trust?
Through consistency of being in expanded states with the intention of connecting to higher beings. So you first have to have the belief that this is real and that you can do it. That's what we build up towards. So after you have a consistent practice, you continue that breeds familiarity with what it feels like to make a connection with a spirit, be that a guide or loved one across the veil. And with that familiarity comes confidence that I'm really connecting. They are really right here. And with confidence comes the trust. It's a process.
So by repeatedly entering into this relaxed yet alert state, we're basically teaching our body that subtle perception is safe.
Yes, and then overcoming a lifetime of programming that says, trust but verify.
Perfect. And so as some may already know, we never know when we have done our last Suzanne Giesemann Hemi-Sync exercise. Each one is an inspired piece from your guides, who you refer to collectively as Sanaya, right?
Yes, yes.
And so what personal experience led to the creation of Trusting the Connection?
Oh, it's fascinating, Garrett, because your wonderful sound engineer, Kevin Cowan, who has beautifully curated all of these recordings, reached out to me well over a year ago and said, hey, when are you going to do another recording? And I said, I don't have one for you. I haven't been inspired. Everyone has, like you said, come from spirit. And I just set it aside, and I really had no idea because they don't come from me. And I felt that set of 4 for the mediumship series and the 2 for getting to know your true nature were complete, and they were. But we're all in evolution, and my personal evolution included a huge wake-up call last August to a major piece of the mediumship journey that I was missing. And that is that, yes, we focus on the 7 energy centers when we balance the chakras in building the power, that recording. But there are also 3 main energy centers that are honored and used in the Eastern traditions that are called the Dantians, the upper, middle, and lower energy centers or soul awareness centers. And I have often in my teaching talked about the importance of getting out of the head and into the heart. We do that in several of the guided meditations that I lead in the Hemi-Sync recordings. But I was completely unaware of, I knew tangentially about the existence of the hara, the lower dantian, in the belly, but I was unaware of how important it is to a practice of mediumship because nobody was teaching it in my circles. Nobody taught it to me. I never heard anybody bring it up. And it turns out that through a herniated disc that I suffered in August, I was in such pain that I turned to my guides and said, is there a deeper cause here or something I need to pay attention to? And indeed, They showed me it was from a lifetime of guarding my energy. We all suffer trauma throughout our lives. I could tick off some of the major ones in my lives, in my military career, and personal tragedies in our family. Like I said, everybody has them. But so many humans are walking around not feeling safe. And for that reason, a lot of people have lower back issues because they're clenching. They think of how many people have digestive disorders, same area. Well, the guide said to me, that is affecting the energy flow in the hara, which is the very center of soul awareness. It's not the heart. The hara is the center of your energetic field. So thanks to their teaching, they showed me how to focus on the hara and ground your energy from there, not the soles of the feet, not the legs. Ground your awareness in the hara, and then visualize your energy going all the way into the earth, pulling feminine energy up, aligning it with the heart and the head, and going up to the cosmos, pulling the masculine energy down for balance. And so when I started doing that, I noticed that my connection to spirit became much more solid and anchored. I was thrilled with my connection until then, but this was a game changer. And so I began teaching about the hara, and I learned through practice and by focusing on the hara that the knowing sense increased, and that when I sensed something in a reading, I trusted it when I moved my awareness to the hara and tuned in. Can I trust this? And the knowing was just there. Yes, this is valid. Or no, go back and revisit that. So when that all came to light and I began practicing it and teaching it last year, all of a sudden at the beginning of 2026, my guide said, and this is your next Hemi-Sync recording, and it will be called Trusting the Connection, now that you have the missing piece. I had already done and put on my website a workshop called The Forgotten Center, which is the hara, and it shows how to get that trust in the moment. But what was missing was a recording with the binaural beats, which help you enter a whole brain state to use in a daily practice of honing this trust and training yourself to shift attention from the head to the heart and the hara. So that is incorporated beautifully in these recordings. And just like the other 6 recordings I did for Hemi-Sync, I sat down to meditate. I knew that the guides are going to give me what to say on these recordings. So I just sat down, entered the very expanded state I hoped to guide people to, turned on my recording, and took dictation. I channeled the entire narrative for both recordings, track 1 and track 2, from Sanaya. And like every other one, it came out just right. First time, we say one and done with the guides. I sent it to the wonderful folks at Hemi-Sync, and just like all the other ones, they never changed a word of it. No editing necessary because it comes from a higher place.
Oh, it's come out perfect. Well, that is so interesting. The primacy of the lower dantian is something that has really been coming up a lot recently on this show, on this podcast. It is a pretty well understood component in Eastern, especially Taoist traditions, but in a lot of Western psychic communities, clairvoyance or mediumship in general is thought of as more of a third eye, head center type activity, which it is, but you can actually deplete yourself if your lower dantian and your middle dantian are not well developed as well. So really thrilled to hear that. And your meditation, your guided meditation in this track really reflects what you're talking about here. So it begins. So you invite the listener to begin in their hara and to establish roots of awareness into the earth before bringing feminine energies back up through the legs, again to the hara. So what is going on there? What are we trying to achieve?
We're trying to achieve balance because most of us, when we connect with higher consciousness, think go higher. But I've learned that we don't need to leave this body. The soul is pure connection to pure consciousness. So there's no need to go anywhere. Embody the soul and center that awareness here in the center of you. Don't go to the head and higher. go within. And so the center is the hara. And then you pull up that feminine energy, that's balancing the cosmic energy that most of us think is the most important. No, what's important is the two equal flows. It doesn't matter what gender you are. We all have and use both of these, and you can simply ask for them to be balanced in their flow, and that is the result. So by doing that regularly, using this guided meditation, that becomes part of your practice, and you will feel the difference.
Really great. And you've also created a fabulous booklet or manual to accompany these two exercises. In it, you talk about how the ideas or the feelings of should and must might come up or are even likely to come up. Can you tell us a bit more about that dynamic?
This is the wonderful thing about when we practice mediumship and connecting with higher consciousness, we start to notice the human behaviors as opposed to the soul's natural state that really hold us back and cause constriction and restriction. And one of the very human nature characteristics is we find ourselves saying, I should do this, I have to do this, I need to do this. And even saying that, I feel the constriction. So you start to identify how that's arising in your life. You can feel how it's causing constriction, and you have the opportunity to just let it go.
You know, that's interesting because Carl Jung would also say, or would often say that whatever should comes up in your consciousness, that is a telltale sign of the superego being activated. The superego is basically your inner critic or your internalized parental voice, which can absolutely be constrictive.
Yeah, I've been teaching lately about the difference between the two modes of experiencing life while in this body. One is operating system 1, OS1. That's the base state. That's pure consciousness, the I am. And then OS2, operating system 2, I call those the overlays. That's everything that follows I am. And so certainly shoulds and have tos and musts are overlays that don't serve us. Not all overlays are bad, but you start to notice, oh, that's an overlay I can just let go.
Awesome. So we're basically changing our operating system by doing these exercises.
Or we're shifting, more to the point, our identification with the overlay to I am this pure state. Is that overlay helpful? They're both valid ways of operating this world, but one is much more freeing and open and whole.
Thank you for that. So ultimately, we're centering our awareness in our hara and inviting beings of light to come forward. What's the significance of this choice? Again, like some listeners might expect it to be a third eye or head center activity. Anything further to add there? And any suggestions for how to respond when a presence or a being of light might come into our awareness?
Well, that's the third E of the 3 E's of awakened way living. Number 1, educate yourself. I love how the booklet does that. It really gives a good summary of what Trust in the Connection is all about. Then experience for yourself, which is what the recordings allow you to do, to experience the presence of spirit in your field of awareness. And then the third E is engage whatever you sense. So this is not just a, wow, I wonder what this is, what's happening. This is an acknowledgement that this connection has a purpose. There's actually another being of light here. And you engage it by saying, who are you? And asking other questions that you're prompted to ask in this recording, and then given ample time to see what you perceive.
Lovely. And so in the second free flow exercise, you emphasize that trust begins as familiarity, and you emphasize feeling over visualizing, which also might be counterintuitive to people that think they're doing psychic development work. Any comment there?
I've recently encountered several people who have a condition called aphantasia. They cannot visualize. And I say, what happens if I say visualize a pink elephant? I personally can't imagine not seeing that in my mind's eye. And they say, we don't see anything, but we can describe it in great detail. So we all have different levels of which of the soul senses we use the most. They will flow. They're dynamic. And so it's really optimal when you combine whatever senses are being utilized to bring through the presence of a spirit, and as they combine, they aggregate into this knowing. That's the optimal. You don't need to see or hear anything. You just know this is my mother, or this is this person's child, or this is a guide, and here's what they're imparting to me, and words aren't even necessary.
Fascinating. And then in terms of working our way through these exercises, or the entire mediumship series, let's say, how should people think about measuring progress?
Well, trusting the connection is really the pinnacle there, because it could take you years, or you could just know so completely this is not my imagination that you're already there. But I would see it as, oh yeah, my guides just interrupted here because I was going to say one thing and they said no. The most important point is not to measure it, to just sit and be with what arises, with the intention to come from the heart in service to yourself and others, if that's your calling. And after every session, say, what did I gain from that? How did I change?
Yeah. And again, in your great booklet, you emphasize consistent openness rather than consistent results, which...
Oh yeah. And people expect bells and whistles every time. Wouldn't that be great? But then it would lose its luster, really. So there will be times when you'll do the meditation and you'll feel like nothing happened. But this recording is not about bells and whistles. It's about subtlety. And it's about trusting that even just the slightest little feeling, you can feel into it and say, what is that? And you can hone your ability to know, is this coming from my own local field, or am I interacting with a greater field? That often doesn't come with wows and huge gold nuggets of evidence. It can be very subtle, like a little lip twitch, like I get all the time from my guides, or just a tingling feeling. And you might say, is that my imagination? Because in both exercises, track 1 and track 2, you are invited to invite in a guide or a loved one across the veil. So it can be very experiential, but it can also be subtle. So you have that practice of literally putting your hands on the hara and feeling, what is this? Yeah.
So you do recommend using the hands as a tool. You place them on the hara. Okay, interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and that also helps with focus. All of this from the very first recording is the training ground for somehow taming that monkey mind that is such a part of being in a human body. It's always going to be there, but putting the hands on the hara helps you embody presence and know I don't have to drift off into space. It's okay to focus right here.
Uh-huh. And so again, like we're emphasizing trusting the connection here. Any words of advice for helping people that are beginners, intermediate, maybe even advanced, distinguish between, I guess you'll say, like authentic or true messages versus stuff that is maybe coming from their psychological content?
That is the number one challenge we all face, because especially if you're clairaudient, unless you're speaking to a soul whose voice comes through sounding like them, it's going to sound like your own thoughts. And so this is where the subtlety comes in, and it's a training in discernment. Is this novel, new to me, something I wouldn't have thought of? Why does it stand out? If it's not new and I would have thought of this, why is it coming up now? You feel into it, and there's that knowing. You'll know, wait, I just thought of that this morning, so that's my own thoughts coming up again. So then you just expand, hold that trust, and say, what do I need to pay attention to? And you go back to listening. So it's a practice.
Thanks for that. One of the things that I love about this album is how it kind of brings everything together, from the simple, coherent states of consciousness that we used earlier in the series, to moving further beyond the physical, ultimately to beyond space and time, in the later pieces, to the more embodied practices, you beyond your story, or getting to know your true nature. This one really leans on all of that, and it also brings in new material that roots awareness in the body, and continues to kind of work through our own psychological conditioning. Not sure if you had any parting thoughts for folks on this one.
Again, I just have gratitude for Spirit, because it has been so guided, and I didn't plan out all 7 of these, and yet looking back, it is this beautiful progression that someone is overseeing at a higher level, and I'm
Absolutely.
just honored for that. But I do want to say that it was only a couple years ago that I realized that the Hemi-Sync tones, the binaural beats, have been crucial in my development as a medium. I attended the Monroe Institute's Gateway program years ago. It was life-changing, and I started using binaural beats from that day on. And I had taught thousands of students how to connect, but I never required or asked them to use binaural beats because I thought, oh, that's going to incur an extra expense. Until my guide said, you use them every day to this day. And I do. I sit right across the room here and I put my headphones on and I listen to my own binaural beats recordings, the free flow part, because there is a difference. And I call binaural beats training wheels for meditation. You don't have to have them, but once you sense them, experienced meditators that have never used them just say, whoa, I dropped in easier and faster. And that's the human part of us that always wants it easier and faster. But if the end result is a greater connection, a sense of wholeness and completeness, of course we're going to use that beautiful tool.
Absolutely. What year did you do Gateway?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even tell you right now. It was probably around 2012, 2013.
Okay. Yeah, that was around when I did it. That's interesting. I don't think that I knew that about you previously. That's new information.
Oh.
Or I forgot about it. I don't know.
Yeah, so I did that, and to have then the Hemi-Sync company reach out to me and say, would you like to do a recording? What an honor. Yeah, and that's when I already knew by that point that my guides always have a better outcome of anything than if I tried to do it myself. So I turned to them, and it's been a great journey.
Were you already working as a medium at that time, or did that kind of, you were?
I'm sure I was,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
I had some phenomenal experiences there, and no wonder, because you're immersed, and you're in having repeated expanded states of consciousness. Your intention is to make that connection, and that's why these recordings are so good. You're making a very small investment monetarily in something that pays off in a huge payoff for you in terms of expanded states of consciousness and hopefully experiences that will show you who you are and what you're part of. But it's like in the Gateway program or anything Monroe does, it's intense and it's immersive. This, you spread out and can do it yourself every day for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it never gets old.
That's absolutely right. Awesome. And where can people find Suzanne in the upcoming months? Do you have any upcoming classes or?
I do. I always have something coming up, but let's see. After this, we have a couple of classes in mediumship, both for those who want to be mediums, that's making the connection, and then personal mediumship for those who simply want to connect with their own loved ones. And I say simply, what a gift. Both of those in Tucson in November. Then I have an online class with the Shift Network that will be announced later this year, but in December, a 7-week class about, again, it's always about making the connection.
Yeah.
And if you're on my email list, you'll find out about that when it's announced.
All right. Well, thank you so much. For all of you listening or watching, make sure you make the connection with Suzanne. Please share this up or leave a comment where relevant, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.